What's up, Wizards? It's Dev. SBMTG, we on that magic. And you know we got some more Throne of Eldraine spoilers for you today. That's what you come for. We got like 22 cards that we have to look at today. And even though there's some stuff lower on the totem pole for limited play that we got to blast through at the beginning, there's a bunch of cards too towards the end of the video that will definitely impact Standard, Commander, and even Modern in the case of at least one card today. So there's a lot to get to. Let's jump in. Let's start with Marleaf Rider and Bog Naughty, which is just a great name. It's so fun to say. It sounds like you're getting especially naughty if you get Bog Naughty, you know. We getting Swamp Nasty tonight. I really like the name of the card, but Marleaf Rider is a 2-mana 3/1 in green. It's an elf knight, and if you sacrifice a food, target creature blocks the rider this turn if able. So sort of a pseudo kind of fight effects in a way, in a workaround kind of thing. I actually do like the card in Limited, but let's get on to Bog Naughty. This is Bog Naughty. It just sounds great. It's 5 mana, 3 and 2 black for a 3/3 fairy with flying. And you can pay 2 and a black and sack a food to have target creature get -3/-3 until end of turn. In Limited, this is one of the best things you can be doing with your food tokens. I imagine not only do you get a 5 mana, 3/3 flyer, which at least respectable stats, you get a kind of pumped up flyer. You always want that in Limited, but removal on a stick that's repeatable, you know, even if you only get a couple of food tokens in a game, that equates to 2 dead creatures. That is really, really good, especially in Limited lands, so definitely be looking to play this. We also saw Insatiable Appetite and Spinning Wheel today. Spinning Wheel is not great. It's one of these manalith type things. A 3-mana rock that you can tap for any color, or you can pay 5, which is all of the mana, and also tap it to tap target creature, so it can't even pay for its own activation. I mean, it doesn't look amazing, but it's sort of removal in Limited, so that's kind of good. You often want these mana rocks, especially if you're playing 3 colors. And this is actually the second 3-mana rock that we've seen in this set at a relatively low rarity, so it's not going to be too hard to sneak that 3rd color in. As far as Appetite, this is another 2-mana green card. It's an instant, and you can sacrifice a food. And if you do, target creature gets +5/+5 until end of turn. But otherwise, that creature gets +3/+3. It mostly looks like a limited combat trick, and I'm probably not looking to play too many. There's also True Love's Kiss and Trapped in the Tower. True Love's Kiss, this is flavor that you want to play off of in a fairy tale set, but the card is a little bit underwhelming for the source material it's pulling from. I mean, it's really an important moment in a lot of fairy tales, right? But all it does is for 4 mana at instant speed, you exile an artifact or enchantment, and you draw a card. So, sweet, limited sideboard removal for artifacts and enchantments. Yay. I guess maybe if there's an artifact or an enchantment that you must exile in an upcoming format, like we're going back to Theros, so this could effectively just be creature removal if there's a bunch of enchantment creatures in that set. Again, I don't know, maybe. You can twist your brain around to where like there's a standard where this is actually playable, like really, really playable, but mostly this looks like, at present, a limited sideboard card. The Trapped in the Tower is a little bit better to my mind. This is 2 mana for an enchantment. It's a pacifism that can't pacify flying creatures, but they throw in activated abilities. That is actually not too bad. I like pacifism already. I really hate the condition of not being able to hit flying creatures, although for flavor reasons I get it. I mean, I get your joke, Wizards. I'm just not sure that I'm laughing too much. You know, in Limited, this is going to be fine removal, but it can't take out the creatures that you really care about removing the most. That said, you'll still play it. You'll happily play it. And sometimes this is going to shut down important activated abilities. And I could again see a standard where a card like this is playable, but I highly doubt it. There are also a couple of cool reprints today, like Integridade. This is actually just righteousness, if that wasn't immediately apparent to you. If you're an older player, you see a 1 white mana card with +7/+7 on it. It kind of doesn't matter what language it is. You know that it's righteousness. This card is pretty righteous, but it's actually not as good as it looks. Oh, and by the way, also Opt is back. It's probably the way more relevant reprint. My take on this is yay. I've seen some people on the internet today who are like, no, but personally, I'm happy that we get to keep playing this effect in Standard. It's in some ways the glue that holds a lot of different decks together, whether they're combo decks trying to do specific weird stuff and find specific weird cards, the odd control deck here and there, the sort of prowessy aggro deck from time to time. Just Opt does a lot of things for a lot of decks, and it's a totally fair card. Even though it's got a relatively high power level, especially for its mana cost, it's still a fair effect that a lot of decks should have access to, so I'm glad that we still have Opt. Now, there were a lot of good one-drops today. I'm going to look at 3 right now, and then, like, one of the best cards of the day is also a one-drop, but we'll get to that a little bit later. First of all, let's look at Cauldron Familiar, Inquisitive Puppet, and Beloved Princess. All of these look really good to me. Beloved Princess, I guess, is Snow White, I think? We also saw the 7 Dwarfs today. We'll get there, but anyway. This is just 1 white mana for a 1/1 human noble with lifelink, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater, which is kind of nice, especially if you can enchant it to where its power is above 3, then you're probably pretty solid at that point, and the lifelink would be really nice in that situation too. This is also a really good little 1-drop for Lovestruck Beast. So it might, maybe it's Belle, maybe it's just every Disney princess, right? Because it could be Sleeping Beauty or even Cinderella. She's good with animals. But anyway, this seems like a pretty solid 1-drop in like very specific decks, but not every deck. And that's kind of 1-drop that I like. The same thing with these other ones, though, for that matter. Cauldron Familiar looks interesting, but not necessarily good. I won't go that far. I like the creature type, but that's about it. I will say, though, that this triggers Spectacle for just 1 mana, and if you've got extra food tokens laying around, it can actually equate to like a bolt's worth of reach over the course of a game, and in combination with like Oko, for instance, you just make a food token every single turn with Oko, and then block with the cat. Use the food token to bring the cat back, and then block for Oko again every single turn, so you always have a creature to block for Oko. That could be okay, and you're dealing incremental damage and gaining life the entire time. So there's some interactions that I like with this, but honestly, I'm not too sure about it at the end of the day. But Inquisitive Puppet is probably, of these 3, the one that I'm most excited about. This is 1 mana for a 0/2 artifact construct, and when it ETBs, you scry 1. And you can also exile Inquisitive Puppet to create a 1/1 white human creature token. There's a lot I like about this, aside from just the art. The art is phenomenal. And yeah, Pinocchio, so I guess there's that. But there's also the fact that this is sort of the next in a long line of doomed travelers and hunted witnesses and blister pods and grim initiates and 1-mana creatures like this that'll leave a creature behind. Now, the difference with this, and I think it could be an upside, is that you effectively get to choose when it dies in a lot of cases. I wish this was a sacrifice, just put it in your graveyard, but it probably wouldn't be broken in that case, but it would be way more abusable. Let's put it that way. I would much rather this be a sacrifice, though. Exiling it puts it off of, Judith triggers and Cruel Celebrant triggers and all kinds of stuff, and that kind of sucks. But at the same time, it's important that this is, again, a 1-mana creature that's basically 2 creatures. This is kind of 2 blockers on turn 1 in a defensive deck. And any deck can play it. Artifact decks that want to prioritize playing artifacts in the early game probably love this thing. The Lady of the Lake Brawl deck, or even the Lady of the Lake deck in Standard, might really like this as a 1-drop. But we got a couple more comments to go through, including another 1-drop artifact creature, Ginger Brew. We finally got to see what this thing is today. We've been done seeing the art, as we say down here in the South, although we usually don't finish that sentence with the word art. But we've been done seeing the art. You really, actually, I guess you don't hear that very often. But anyway, Ginger Brew is just 1 mana for a 1/1 artifact creature, Food Golem. That's an important creature type. It has haste, and you can pay 1 and have it not be able to be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste. Or you can pay 2 and tap it and sacrifice it to gain 3 life. So this is like the most aggressive bottle gnomes that ever existed. It's kind of like Bomat Courier-ish. Could replace cards like Fanatical Firebrand in like mono red aggro decks. I just love that it's a 1-drop with haste that any deck can play. So like any deck that's trying to go fast. In your mono white aggro, you might end up playing this or something. And in the aggro mirror, you got a way to gain some life. I wish it didn't tap, though. I wish that you could just like block with, well, I guess not even block, just attack in with it. If it gets blocked, you can sack it, but alas, you can't do that with it. But what you can do is just use it as like a 10th Street Dodger, kind of, with really good flavor. It's cute. Only fast creatures can catch it. So I get what you're doing again. I get your joke, Wizards, but it turned into a really kind of exciting card. I'm probably more excited for this card than I really should be, but I've made it clear that I like 10th Street Dodger in the past. So 10th Street Dodger in a way that any deck can play, and also sacks for 3 life, is a food, so you can sack it to your Goose for a mana. You can sack it to, that black cat we just looked at to bring the cat back. You can sack it to Bog Naughty to kill a creature in limited. There's a lot of reasons why you might want a food thing laying around. And aside from that, it's just a solid card. I like this thing a lot. Seven Dwarfs, on the other hand, is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 2/2 dwarf, and it gets +1/+1 for each other creature named 7 dwarves you control. A deck can have up to 7 cards. Name 7 dwarves. This card pump faked me at first. When I first read this morning, I thought, as I was reading it, that it was going to be like a deck can have any number of 7 dwarves. But no, not at all. It turns out you can just have the 7 copies. So I can't wait for the Frank Karsten math on how likely you are to draw a copy of 7 dwarves if you have all 7 copies in your deck, and why would you be playing the card if you didn't have all 7 copies. This is just cute. This is probably just a cute card, but I can imagine this is going to be fun in Singleton, right? People are just going to keep playing Persistent Petitioners. Why? It's so hard to say the name of that card without sounding drunk. Persistent Petitioners. People are probably just going to keep playing Petitioners in Singleton, but this could be a force to be reckoned with, and in a way replaces Rat Colony without being so stupid as Rat Colony in Singleton, so I guess there's that. But honestly, I'm not that excited for like constructed playability on this card. I just think it's super cute flavor. I guess it won't be so cute when you have a gang of 8/8 dwarves out, but whatever. Let's move on to Opportunistic Dragon. This is a rare, but I'm not too sure about it. It's 4 mana, 2 red for a 4/3 dragon with flying, and when it ETBs, you choose target human or artifact an opponent controls. For as long as Opportunistic Dragon remains on the battlefield, gain control of that permanent, loses all abilities, and it can attack or block. So, you know, I mean, I guess maybe for Commander, you just like steal a human, steal an artifact, and then it becomes completely useless, which I hate that part of it, I guess. But like, I've seen odd rumblings that this could see Modern play, but this is just like way too overcosted for Modern, and it's boltable for 4 mana. Like, this is never going to see Modern play. I don't know about this ain't it, Chief. But even in Standard, there have to be like particularly annoying, you know, artifacts or humans, and although I guess you could make the case that there are, I'm still not sure that this would end up being worth sideboard slots at the end of the day. This just looks like a bulk rare to me. Now, I think we've made it through all the sort of whatever stuff, but that said, there are still like commons and uncommons that I want to look at. I just think that they're much higher power level than any other cards we've looked at so far today, because we got a couple of things to replace the 2 mana removal that's outgoing in this format. We not only saw Scorching Dragonfire to replace Lightning Strike. Hopefully that doesn't mean Lightning Bolt's out. It is. They're never going to do it. And then also Epic Downfall, I guess to replace Cast Down. It's even got the word down in the name, but they're not necessarily comparable cards. Downfall is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a sorcery, which might end up killing this card. You exile target creature with converted mana cost 3 or greater, which is a fine sideboard card, right? But I'm not really sure that you play a whole bunch of main deck copies of this. An Esper control deck or Dimir control deck, whatever you end up doing, might play 1 main deck copy of this, but I really don't see too many more copies of this on, you know, in too many deck lists. Let me put it that way. That said, it is definitely a considerable piece of removal, and it sounds like I'm downplaying it, but I'm actually not. You know, 1 copy in an Esper list is actually an impactful removal spell in any given format. So just keep in mind that this is going to be an option for those decks, and it's going to be a nice little safety valve for some of these like really overpowered looking creatures they're printing at, you know, 4 mana and above these days. So it actually looks like a fairly powerful card, and we'll probably see more sideboard play than main deck play, but it could sneak into a main deck here or there, and it's an impactful piece. Now, as far as Scorching Dragonfire, this looks really good to me. 1 and a red for an instant. Much better speed on this card, and it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If that creature or planeswalker would die this turn, you exile it instead. Now, this is a beautifully designed card, as far as I'm concerned at least. It's not a Lightning Strike because it can hit players, but it's also not a Lava Coil because it doesn't do 4 damage. That said, it's instant speed and can hit planeswalkers. So that's a really good sort of amalgamation of a couple of really important 2 mana removal pieces in red, and I think this might be one of the more played ones going forward, especially considering exiling creatures is going to be a concern, and exiling planeswalkers is probably going to be a concern too in the upcoming format, because planeswalkers are going to be relatively heavily played, at least from all the signs and indicators that we've gotten so far. So I think this is going to be a really nice, fair, and important piece of removal in the next standard. I like this thing a lot. But let's get into the big stuff today. Here's a white mythic, Harmonious Archon. This is 6 mana, 4 and 2 white for a 4/5 creature. It's an Archon. Not too many creatures with that type. That's going to be important when you hear the rest of the text. It's got flying, and non-Archon creatures have base power and toughness 3/3. When Harmonious Archon enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. Now, apparently this is very similar to a Hearthstone card. That's been the discussion on this today. But as far as actual like playability in our game, I'm not too sure. 6 mana. 6 mana is so much, but this does go pretty well with like a Deafening Clarion because you just wipe your opponent's side of the board, and you can give this lifeline, so that's kind of nice. That's not bad. And if you have a bunch of like 1/1 creatures or something, or 2/2 creatures, you can technically upgrade them with this, so that's not bad steez either. But 6 mana is that is a big old investment. But this technically brings like 10 power on the battlefield when it hits the table, so that might be good enough, Chief. Let's look at some commanders. Let's do that, ladies and gentlemen, starting with, I think, my favorite commander of the day here. This is Yara, First of Locthwain. That's the name. 3 mana, all of it black, for a we don't know yet power toughness, Elf Noble. The spec on this is that it's a 2/3, but again, we do not know that yet. Whenever Yara, First of Locthwain, or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Or you can tap Yara to sacrifice another black creature and draw a card. I don't know, seems good. I have a propensity for blood artisty type things, you know, anything that says like whenever X happens, deal a damage and gain a life, drains and stuff. You know, your blood artists, your Zulaport Cutthroats, your, you know, even your Judiths that just deal a straight up damage, your Cruel Celebrants and whatnot. I love cards like that, and I think that this is a great version of it. You know, it's not necessarily when a creature dies, but when a creature enters the battlefield is pretty good. I like Corpse Knight. You know, that's a pretty good card to compare this to. This is legendary, so you can't have like a bunch of copies of it out, which does kind of suck, but it's also like repeatable card draw, which is, who doesn't like that, right? And for mono black decks, this is at least a decent 3-drop, although I do have a complaint. I've seen a lot of people making the comment like, oh, this is definitely going to be the 3-drop I was looking for mono black, slots right in, it's going to be nice. Did everybody forget that Murderous Rider just got previewed? Is our attention spans that that's short? I mean, yeah, you might play like 2 or 3 of this in a mono black deck, maybe, if you're like extremely heavy on creatures, or maybe you have like a token-based strategy. I can see this being good with Afterlife, for instance, or Lazotep Reaver. There are definitely black cards I could see this playing well with, but in mono black aggro decks, the way at least I see them being built, I don't see too many copies of this card. Honestly, 3 black is obviously going to be fairly easy to get in that deck, but it looks like it's understated. Even if it's just a 3-mana 3/3, it's still probably a little bit understated, let's face facts. And it's not going to do much until the turn after it enters the battlefield. Creatures like that aren't usually great, you know. I'm not totally as convinced as I want to be. Like I said, this is one of my favorite commanders of the day, so I'm not like hating on it or anything. There's a lot to love about this commander. Again, this trigger is really, really abusable, and it's repeatable card draw. So again, all that's sweet. It's a sacrifice outlet if you want to sack creatures. I mean, yeah, lot to love here, but at the same time, I want to be realistic and wonder if this is more of like a brawl commander than it is an actually standard playable card. Because again, if you're looking for a 3-drop in mono black, Murderous Rider is probably just the way better card than this. But that said, it might sneak into a mono black deck here or there as like a 1 or 2 of. But if you're going balls out and just playing nothing but, you know, you got 32 creatures in your deck and you're going deep on like Priest of Forgotten Gods and Midnight Reaper triggers and stuff like that, then yeah, this probably goes in. Up next is Sir Eleonora the Discerning. This is 5 mana, 3 and 2 blue for a star 4 legendary human knight. And that power there is equal to the number of cards in your hand. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and spells your opponent's cast that target Eleonora cost 2 more to cast. This actually looks quite good to me. You know, I've seen a fairly ambivalent reception from the community so far to this card, a little 50-50 sort of reaction from folks. But honestly, as far as my take on this, I really like this card. I think it's mostly comparable to Crackling Drake, but it doesn't have the flying, you know. But at the same time, this is probably going to be bigger than Crackling Drake in the decks that want to play it. But just like the last card, I have to wonder if this is mostly a brawl commander, you know. It doesn't really do much for you the turn it enters the battlefield. It's a a 5 mana sorcery speed play. So even the control decks that are always going to have like 6, 7 cards in their hand and want this the most probably still really kind of don't want this play. But at the same time, it is a big meaty creature that immediately replaces itself when it enters the battlefield and buffs its own power by doing so. So there is a lot of really cool stuff going on with this legend, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it pop up as a 1 or 2 of in a deck here or there, just like that last commander, but I'm really not too certain about that. That said, as a Brawl commander, it looks really good, and along with cards like the Blue Finale that leaves you with a buttload of cards and no maximum hand size for the rest of the game, I can see this going really well. But the last commander that I want to cover today is not necessarily my favorite one. The reason that I put it last is because it's the one I fear the most, and that's Gadwick the Wizened. This is 3 blue mana and X for a 3/3 legendary human wizard, and when it ETBs, you draw X cards. Whoops. And whenever you cast a blue spell, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. Now, this is another card that the reception from our community today has been kind of split. It's been 50-50, and really I think that it kind of more spills towards the side of like, and I don't get it. I think that this is just like phenomenal. This card is absolutely amazing. And even though I have some of the same gripes, it's going to cost a lot of mana. It comes in at sorcery speed, so our control deck's really going to want to play it. But I think that those gripes are minimal, especially in a format full of ramp decks. We got Nyssa in this format right now, y'all, plus like Paradise Druid, Risen Reef, Leafkin Druid, a million other cards that ramp really, really well, Circuitous Route. I could go on and on. There's a lot of ramp in this format, and it doesn't look like decks like Bant Ramp or Temur Elementals are really going anywhere anytime soon in the upcoming standard. And yeah, 3 blue looks like a lot, but I mean, we already cast like Mass Manipulation in these Nyssa decks, so this should not be too hard to get. And maybe you cut a copy of Hydroid Krasis or something and play a copy of this, or maybe you just keep playing all 4 Krasis, throw in a copy of this, because it'd be really nice to get off of a Tamiyo, get back from your graveyard with the Tamiyo if it gets in there somehow. It'd be a nice card to pick up halfway through the game when you just have 12 mana to just burn, and some blue spells to cast too. Tap down that guy, get through with a big Hydroid Krasis or something. That's wonderful. But honestly, if you just look at it in the context of like, what if this guy cost you 5 mana? What if you just, you pump 2x into him? At that point, you draw 2 cards, and you get a fairly stout body on the battlefield. So, like, that's not a bad investment either. Like, even if you're not going all the way and pumping 7 mana, 8, 9, 10 mana into this thing, then you're still getting a pretty good return on investment. Like, you pay 4 mana for this, you get a card and a 3/3. Whenever you cast blue spell, you just tap stuff. That's very good. I like this a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a way more powerful card than most people are judging it as right now. But speaking of blue X spells, we actually got a couple of those today. And this, too, looks better to me than it does to a fair amount of people in the community. Because I've seen, again, kind of an reaction to Stolen by the Fae. This is 2 blue mana and X for sorcery. Return target creature with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand. Create X 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying. Okay, so yeah, it just says X, so it can't be X or less. I'm going to go ahead and clear that up. That's like the #1 misconception I've seen people have with this card throughout the day. But at the same time, like, even if you're getting a 3-drop and you're putting that back in their hand, at sorcery speed, I really wish this was an instant, but it'd be probably like busted if it was an instant. So I'll give it that conceit. Sorcery speed's fine, but if you're returning a 3-drop to their hand, you got some tempo on them, and you got 3 1/1 flyers. Everybody, 3 1/1 flyers for 5 mana, and you got to return a thing to their hand. It's not bad. It just does not seem that bad to me. It is a little bit restricted by type, which I don't love. Like in the control mirror, it doesn't look too good, because you're going to be hard-pressed for creatures to return to their hand, but it's not like a thing your opponent controls. You can also return, like, that Elite Guard Mage to your hand. That's pretty good, right? Return Elite Guard Mage to your hand, get 4 fairies, and then next turn, cast your Elite Guard Mage again. That seems at least okay, or maybe even in some games, you'll cast a Hydroid Krasis for a bunch, and then next turn, you can pop it back to your hand for a total of 4 mana and get 2 1/1 fairies and then just play your Hydroid Krasis for a bunch of mana again in those Nyssa decks. So again, I could see this having some actual real relevance, although I'm not as impressed by it as that Mono Blue Commander that we just saw. I still think this has a little bit more of a chance than a lot of people are giving it at present. But the only card left to cover today, so far, at time of recording at least, is Fervent Champion. This is Javier Dominguez's prize for winning the 2018 Worlds. That's him right there. And he got to help design the card, although he did not get to design the card himself, sadly. You don't get to do that anymore, but you at least get to have input on the design. So, whatever. It's 1 mana. There's the story time with Dev. Just 1 red mana for a 1/1 human knight with first strike and haste. That's already at least okay. And whenever it attacks, another target attacking knight you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. But there's actually more text on this card. Equip abilities you activate the target Fervent Champion cost 3 less to activate. Okay, so that's it's pretty stupid, right? This fits in a bunch of different little niches. Not only is it obviously good in knight decks, that seems fine. Like, even if you just get like 2 copies of this to start the game off, it's actually pretty good. You're going to be dealing a fair amount of damage to them before they've even played their second land if you win first. So it's pretty decent in the night decks as a 1-drop. That goes without saying. But obviously, even in modern, in equipment decks, I mean, they just unbanned Stoneforge Mystic, so Stoneforge Mystic in this, you know, you're playing swords anyway, and this effectively just equips swords for free and already has the first strikes. That's... Ooh. And again, if all of that weren't really enough, like all the extra ancillary, you know, second and third paragraphs on the card, just a 1 mana 1/1 first strike and haste is kind of good enough to play in a fair amount of aggro decks. I played a bunch of Grim Initiates in my day, and honestly, the first strike on a 1-power creature matters greatly in aggro mirrors a large percentage of the time, and that's in a format containing Goblin Chain Whirlers where people are at least a little bit more afraid to play 1 toughness creatures. That won't even be a factor in the upcoming format, so I expect to see at least a few more 1 toughness creatures against which first strike on a 1/1 is actually really, really relevant, so keep that in mind. But it gets going really fast, and it makes certain equipments much, much better, Although, again, at time of recording, I really don't see too many equipments that I love in Standard right now. The best thing this goes with is the Excalibur thing, Embercleave. But even then, I'm not really sure how much I love that. But, you know, if we see a particularly good equipment, then obviously keep your eyes open because it will go nicely with this. But in Modern, we have a ton of insane equipments that are effectively free to equip on this. And by the way, let's get back to Standard for a second, because if there's one cool trick, once you get 2 of these down, a Colossus Hammer only costs like 2 to equip, and once you get 3 out, if that ever happens, Colossus Hammer is free to equip. So that seems kind of nice, right? But there's just all kind of little boxes that this ticks off and decks that this fits into very, very nicely. So I expect us to see a fair amount of play across formats and in a large variety of decks. But that's all the spoilers for now, at least. I get the feeling they always get the feeling that they're going to spoil a couple more cards today. Like, as a content creator, spoiler season makes you paranoid. Like, you never know when they're going to drop a card. You're checking Mythic Spoiler and Scryfall like every 3 seconds to see if they preview anything else. I've reloaded Mythic Spoiler like 12 times recording this video, so you never know. But if they do, I'll catch them. I'll get them tomorrow in that spoiler video, and I'm going to try to start getting these out a little bit earlier for y'all. I know that's important, but hey, for anybody that watches me in, like, Europe, if I upload these at, like, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm pretty sure that's a pretty decent time for you. So, hey, you're welcome. But I'm going to try to get these out a little bit earlier than I have been for y'all. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this one. Please make sure to like the video. If you did, don't mean to beg, but it helps a lot. But the thing that helps the most is if you subscribe. So hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell button. They make you hit 2 buttons now. If you actually want to get notified of my videos, hit the bell if you want more of these spoiler videos. And then also consider checking out the Patreon. I'm just $1 a month, and that'll help you figure out, help pick what decks you want to see in Throne of Eldraine Standard. So it's worth $1 a month. I'm worth $1. And also, if you want to check out any of these cards on pre-order, or if you just want to see what they're going for as kind of a price guide dealie, we don't really have Inquest anymore. That's sad. But I think even like Beckett doesn't do it anymore. I might be wrong about that, though. But anyway, conventional price guides are a thing in the past. So if you just want to know what these cards are going for, hit the first link in the description, go over to TCG Player, pick up anything that you might need. But I'm pretty sure that sews it up on the day. Sorry y'all haven't seen Ziggy. He's actually been in my lap for like the last 3 videos, but he's just barely off camera. So let's see how much I have to tilt the camera down. I know you get very upset when you can't see Ziggy, but don't worry, he's down here being a comfy boy. He's a good boy. But anyway, I guess I'm actually done rambling for now. So I'm Dev from the Place. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Spread love and be kind.